I've been wanting to make this video for the past couple of weeks, and I've been reading up so much on it. And I know I'm not going to do it justice, but I want to plant the seed for you to go and do your own research, to educate me in the comments, and to educate other people. Because I'm raising this as a problem in society, and finding solutions is going to be incredibly difficult in a globalized world where we are all hamstrung and throttled by so-called capitalism and capitalistic systems. I'm going to be doing a lot of reading, so I hope you'll allow me. And like I said, I don't even think I'm going to do it justice at all. The title of this video is How Modern Capitalism Has Made Us Poorer Than Our Parents. Today, we probably work 3 times more than our parents. And on paper, we earn maybe 6 times what they did. And yet we can't even afford half of what they could. And the question is why? There's an amazing documentary on Netflix, if you get a chance to watch it, called Buy Now. Please go check it out because it really touches on some of the concepts I'm going to be raising today. I read a great tweet as well by Sizwe, sikaMusi, who I've referenced a couple of times in previous videos as well. Really, he writes some really mind-challenging educational content on Twitter at Sizwe. 4 concepts that I want us to chew over today. Number 1, obsolescence. Obsolescence. Number 2, shrinkflation. Shrinkflation. Number 3, techno-feudalism, that some people call digital feudalism, as made famous by Yanis Varoufakis. Speaks about the renter economy, paywall capitalism, software as a service, and other such elements. And last but not least, Wendy Brown's neoliberalism. Neoliberalism, as explained by Wendy Brown, which touches on the commodification of natural things and the economization of everything. I wrote a whole lot of notes, which I know I'm not going to be able to get through fully, but I'm going to try and read them as much as possible. And I want to go through each of these 4 concepts that I just read out to you, reading some of the definitions, explanations that you can find on Wikipedia, online, in various articles, etc. Again, I know I'm not going to do this justice, but I want to plant the seed because I'm hoping to have this conversation on many different platforms, speaking to different people, so that somewhere, somehow, we can either find a solution or find a way to live with these concepts infiltrating our lives. Answering the question, why are we poorer than our parents in modern capitalism? Obsolescence. Let me start there. In economics and industrial design, planned obsolescence is the concept of policies planning and designing a product with an artificially limited useful life or a purposely frail design so that it becomes obsolete after a certain predetermined period of time, upon which it decrementally functions or suddenly ceases to function or might be perceived as unfashionable. It was once regarded as a conspiracy theory. The rationale behind the strategy is to generate long-term sales volume by reducing the time between repeated purchases. It is the deliberate shortening of the lifespan of a product to force people to purchase functional replacements. Planned obsolescence tends to work best when a producer at least has an oligopoly. Before introducing a planned obsolescence, the producer has to know that the customer is at least somewhat likely to buy a replacement from them in the form of brand loyalty. In these cases of planned obsolescence, there's an information asymmetry between the producer, who knows how long the product was designed to last, and the customer who does not. When a market becomes more competitive, product lifespans tend to increase. For example, when Japanese vehicles with longer lifespans entered the American market in the 1960s and 1970s, American car makers were forced to respond by building more durable products. There's a story right now about the company Tupperware that it had filed for bankruptcy. I think it might be coming back, I'm not sure. And one of the jokes, ironically, was the reason Tupperware is struggling financially is because it built such a strong product. You build a strong product, it lasts forever. It means no one needs to come back and replace it. It's one of the reasons, reading about Japanese vehicles, why the Toyota Conquest, the Toyota Corolla, I think last I checked, highest selling vehicle of all time. Why? Because these were durable vehicles. I am a huge fan of the Toyota Tazz, one of the cars. I've probably owned like 10 of them in my life. And the last one that they released was in 2006. That's almost 20 years ago. And they are still strong. They still drive. It's easy to find the parts. They're easy to service. And you realize for a capitalist-minded person, for a business that's trying to make profits, that product becomes a problem. Because you want the product to fail, to expire, so that a person can come back and replace the product with something else. And that's what obsolescence speaks about. It speaks about companies that intentionally go out of their way to build inferior furniture. You can see the quality of couches and beds and things we have today versus our grandparents, who you probably still sit on the same couch that your grandmother had when you were a child. Today, the couches we buy, for example, within 2-3 years, you can start feeling that even the shape has changed and they're not as strong. This is done for profit motives. Shrinkflation. Shrinkflation is the practice of reducing the size or quantity of a product while keeping its price the same, sometimes even increasing it. It is a form of hidden inflation that companies use to maintain profitability and protect profit margins when production costs such as raw materials, labor, and transportation increase. While legal, as long as products are correctly labeled, it can be perceived as deceptive by consumers who may focus more on the price tag than the net weight or size. Key aspects of shrinkflation. What it is, it's a merchandising strategy where products get smaller, but the price stays the same or is perceived to stay the same. Why does it happen? Companies use it to offset rising costs without a direct and potentially unpopular price increase. Commonly affected products include many everyday products, particularly in the food and beverages industries, such as snacks, foods, cookies, and household goods. The consumer impact is that customers effectively pay more per unit for the same product without realizing it. Consumer awareness, the practice has gained more visibility with social media where consumers can share their observations about product downsizing. There used to be a great South African band, Tumi and the Volume. Utumi is now known as Stogie T. And the Volume was a band that was actually known as 340 mils. 340 mils was the size of a can of cool drink at the time when the band was around. And many people would not know that before that, the can of cool drink was actually 350 milliliters. In the recent past, it went from 340 mils to 330 mils, and many people didn't really notice. And many people haven't noticed that today we're looking at cans that are 300 milliliters. Sometimes they change the shape of the packaging. So the can might be the same height, but it's become thinner. Sometimes the can is the same height, but the product inside is less. You see this normally when you look at crisps, your Simba chips, your Doritos, your Lay's. A packet that used to be filled with product, same size packet. If you look at it versus the past, same size packet, but the content inside is way less. And there are people online, as it says here, that are tracking this, where you can maybe go to TikTok, type in shrinkflation, and you'll see how a packet of chips maybe went from 30 grams to 25 grams to 22 grams and no one notices. You see maybe the packaging of noodles, which went from a certain size to a certain size. You look at the tubs of yogurt. A tub of yogurt used to be 1 kilogram. And you blink twice and all of a sudden it's 900 grams, 850 grams. When did this change? That's shrinkflation. The price of the cool drink, we've got these midget, dwarf cool drink bottles now. They look so cute. But if you look at the price we're paying for them, 10 rand for a small bottle of beverage, which was what we would be paying maybe for a 1 liter bottle. You don't realize it. It's a sleight of hand. It's like a magic trick. You blink twice and all of a sudden things have changed. That's shrinkflation. Under shrinkflation, I wanted to add this. It's called credentialism and degree inflation. This is something that affects almost all of us in the modern world. I summarize it as this. Jobs in the past that only needed a grade 9 level education, that was standard 7 for those that are a bit older, then moved to needing grade 12 or matric, same job, then moved to needing a diploma or a junior degree, and then all of a sudden it needed an honors, master's, or some other equivalent postgraduate degree. Today, not only for some of these jobs that only needed grade 9, do you need a postgraduate qualification, but you also need work experience. And for some of them, you need to pay an annual practicing license to ensure that you can keep practicing your trade. How it's defined online when you search. Credentialism and degree inflation refers to processes that result in an inflation of demand for educational qualifications and the devaluation of these educational qualifications. Credentialism or professionalization is the growing protection of professions in modern societies by demanding formal qualifications or certifications. I want to go to some of my other notes here which speak about a form of gatekeeping into certain industries. You may not know this, but there are industries, many of them especially at the high levels, which force the professionals to pay an annual membership fee. If you stop paying this professional membership fee, they revoke your title and you cannot practice or offer the service, etc. It may seem cool, may seem like regulation and compliance, but all it's doing is it's saying you will be gatekept from entering the space through, number one, the degree inflation. So maybe to become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, you needed maybe like a grade 10, and then you can go and do your articles and qualify. Today, you need not only a junior degree, you need a postgraduate qualification just to get in. Now that you're in, after all of that inflation in terms of your education, you then still have to keep paying every year to stay in that space. Examples of this include the HPCSA for medical doctors. That requires roughly 3,500 Rand per annum in terms of a license. The ECSA for professional engineers, which is 3,800 Rand per annum to retain your PR-Eng. SICA, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants for CAs, which is around 9,000 Rand per annum. The LPC for lawyers, which is about 2,000 Rand to 4,700 Rand per annum. I remember reading an article recently on LinkedIn from a gentleman who was saying he has now decided to stop being a CA. And people are like, what the hell do you mean? He said, I come from an underprivileged background where when I got to matric, I had good marks and CA became one of the options. So I got my results, I went to tertiary, I studied very hard, and I got my BCom accounting degree, I got my honors in accounting. Whatever you want to call it, the CA stream, Bachelor of Business Science, Bachelor of Accounting, whatever it's called at your institution. You get your honors equivalent, 4 years, and then you go and you do your articles, which is normally around 3 years, and you write 2 board exams. And then you become qualified as a CA. But after you qualify as a CA, you then have to pay this annual 9,000 Rand per annum. And if you don't pay this 9,000 Rand per annum, even though you've gone through 12 years of schooling, 4 years of tertiary, and then 3 years of articles plus 2 board exams, if you don't pay this 9,000 Rand per annum, they revoke your CA title. You can't sign off on financial statements. And he was like, what the hell? Why am I still paying for something that I earned? For something that is involved in the work that I do all the time? What is the benefit? And sometimes when you ask people, what is the benefit of joining these professional bodies? They're like, it's just to ensure that you're qualified and you're a member, but there isn't much benefit, to be honest. Because there's something else called CPD, continuing professional development. These are tests, exams, sometimes workshops that you pay for to ensure that you're up to date with like the latest changes in your industry. This is very prevalent in IT, which almost makes sense because IT is constantly changing and there's new technologies and there's new coding and where every 6 months, every year, you have to go and write a new exam. Sometimes these exams are 15,000, 20,000. If they're an international exam, you're paying in dollars. They might be $50,000. Sometimes it's paid by your company, sometimes by yourself, just to remain relevant so that you can still be able to provide a certain service. Even though you studied, even though you worked hard, even though you qualified and you graduated, it's like, while you're working, you must still pay this every year. You must still do these tests and exams and workshops. Degree inflation, credentialism. This again for me falls under shrinkflation, because what was a lawyer, CA, engineer back in 1980 versus the year 2000 versus the year 2025 has completely changed. I remember sitting in my honors and accounting class, and which lecturer was it? I think it was an accounting lecturer. The gentleman said, old white man, he said at the time, I don't think I would have ever become a CA if I was in your generation. He's like, back in my day, we had a book that was that thin, one book. Now that you guys are here, you've got 10 books that are super thick with all types of legislation that has been added. Your tax act, your income tax act, your value added tax act. You've got your accounting textbooks. You've got your auditing textbook. You've got your management accounting textbook, etc., etc. It's a lot. To a point where when you're studying honors in accounting, the CTA stream, you are actually allowed to take all of these books, all these legislations into your exam room. The exams are like 4 hours. You don't have a chance to really go through the textbooks, but it's to explain the inflation, of which I'm saying even after you've qualified, you still have to keep paying and keep upgrading yourself. Credential inflation, also called degree inflation, academic inflation, and credential creep, is the devaluation of educational or academic credentials over time, and a corresponding decrease in the expected advantage given a degree holder in the job market due to an excess of higher educated people who compete for too few jobs that require these degrees. It has also led to grade inflation, a tend to award higher grades for accomplishment of the same quality. Today, we've got medical doctors in South Africa that are protesting because they can't get jobs. We've got magistrates who are protesting because they feel they're not getting paid well enough. Part of that payment has to do with all these other things that they have to pay for, things they had to pay for, their study loans, etc. We're going to the next concept, techno-feudalism or digital feudalism. Let's start with the definition of feudalism for people that may not know it. Feudalism was a social and political system. It existed in Europe during the Middle Ages, between the 9th and 15th centuries. Under feudalism, the king owned all of the land in his kingdom. This is like in Ngonyama Trust now with Tumisu Zulu, or King Leruo of the Royal Bafokeng. However, the king would give gifts of land, called fiefs, to the lords or nobles. They speak about fiefdom. This is almost like a president or a minister giving chunks of tenders and stuff to the lords and nobles, being other members of parliament, their friends, etc. That's where the term fiefdom, if you ever read it in politics today, refers to. So the king would give gifts of land that they owned to the lords or nobles. And then the lords and nobles would enter into agreement with the vassal. The vassal or the vassals would allow peasants, this is now us, the losers at the bottom, they would allow peasants called serfs to live on parts of the land. They would allow you to live, allow you. It's not your land, it's the king's land. But obviously there would be a fief under the lord and the noble, like in Duna. And then there'd be the vassals or the vassals who would allow you to occupy this land. Vassals or vassals would also protect serfs from violence. Now imagine the army, the police, etc. In return, a serf had to pay taxes, this is your rates and taxes, and work without pay in the vassal's fields. How similar is that to the world we live in today? Land is almost owned by the government, sort of. You're allowed in an estate, you get like a title deed, or you have an erf. Serf, erf. You have an erf, and you pay rates and taxes there for protection, security, if you're in an estate, the police, etc., for basic refuse removal and maintenance. But you never really own. You never really own this house. For anyone that knows, you own a house, you stop paying rates and taxes, you're like, it's my house. It's my house. If you can't pay those things, the state can come and take that house. Techno-feudalism now is a term used to describe a modern economic system where big technology companies have power similar to feudal lords in the past. Instead of land, these companies control digital platforms, digital real estate, data, and online markets. People and smaller businesses rely on these platforms, just like peasants once relied on feudal lords for land and protection. The concept of techno-feudalism has been developed by several thinkers who argue that digital capitalism is shifting toward a new kind of economic control. One of the most well-known voices on this topic is Yanis Varoufakis, an economist and former Greek finance minister. He argues that companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple do not simply compete in markets, they own and control them, just like feudal lords controlled land in medieval times. So you're like, oh, but the internet is free for everyone. But you realize some of the most key platforms to get into on the internet have got a gatekeeper, being this company that owns that website. And they seem to have monopolies even when you try and do your own thing on the internet. The key features of techno-feudalism: digital fiefdoms. Tech companies own and control digital spaces, extracting rent from users and businesses in the form of data, fees, or advertising. Cloud capital. The value of digital platforms and data has become a new form of capital, giving tech giants immense power. Vassal or vassal capitalists. Businesses and individuals rely on these platforms, paying fees or surrendering data, similar to vassals paying rent to feudal lords. Concentration of power. Tech giants wield significant influence, shaping economic activity and societal behavior. I just want to make a mental note here because it's not in my notes here. We are moving towards digital IDs. They are piloting it in the UK, and I saw in South Africa on the 12th of September 2025 recently, there was a paper that was released, an article that was released, if you go and look for it online, where they're looking into legislation for digital IDs in South Africa. A digital ID is essentially going to exist online. That's going to mean you're going to need internet access via platform to be able to access services from government, your identity, your citizenship, and who knows what other benefits. Access to a bank, access to buying a house, access to buying or renting a car, and. Very interesting times coming up. The implications of techno-feudalism: threats to democracy. Unaccountable tech overlords may undermine democratic institutions and individual freedoms. This is why in countries like China, Meta products, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram are not allowed. Google products, your YouTube, your Google search, your GPS, your Gmail, is not allowed in China because the Chinese Communist Party understands the power of owning digital real estate. In places like South Africa, where we're very free and we have a nice constitution, what tends to happen is your Meta products, your Google products, your YouTubes, your Amazons, your PayPals, your whatever online platform, your Amazons, they sometimes even override the power of your government. You can have a constitution, you can have laws, but some of these online platforms are so influential that they override, and you may find the citizens revolting against government, revolting against their own country's laws, because these online platforms have influenced their way of living and their way of being, censored some of the things that are a law in their country, etc., and they have real impact and a real effect on the ground. Inequality. The threat to democracy. The other thing I want to raise is if you look at what happened during the COVID pandemic, if you look at how certain platforms censor certain words, labels, conversations, it speaks to not having freedom of expression. There are certain people you can't speak about. There are certain terms you can't raise. There's certain information you cannot share. It's flagged as disinformation. It gets taken down. Your account gets removed, etc., which limits your freedom online via these platforms who have some type of oligarchy of sorts. Oligopoly, sorry. Inequality. The concentration of power and wealth among tech giants can exacerbate social and economic disparities. We speak about an Arab Spring and the like, and we speak about how some movements have been sparked on social media platforms. But yes, the concentration of power and wealth among the tech giants gives them so much money and so much influence in certain countries, they can override your government. Regulatory challenges. Governments struggle to regulate these digital fiefdoms, raising concerns about accountability and oversight. How many times has Facebook been fined millions and billions of dollars in Europe, in America, and debate and criticism. Some experts argue that techno-feudalism oversimplifies the complex dynamics of digital capitalism, while others see it as a warning about the dangers of unchecked corporate power. I'm aware that currently Elon Musk is one of the people that's campaigning against Netflix. He owns Twitter X, and he's saying Netflix is pushing agendas of LGBTQI+ to unsuspecting children, and he feels that that is wrong. This is a platform, Netflix, which is an online platform, by the way, which is creating content that they feel is right. And Elon Musk, who owns a platform himself, which can censor content, which can flag your information, which makes sure that certain posts don't get reach and distribution, he is fighting another platform, being Netflix, and saying, I don't agree with your views. Both Elon Musk and the owners of Netflix are not in government. They do not set the laws, but they want to dictate what is right and what's wrong for society. And if Elon Musk wins, that means Netflix will change their content, not just in America, but globally. If Netflix wins, that means Elon Musk loses and Netflix can carry on with whatever agenda that they want. This applies to YouTube. This applies to Facebook, Meta, etc. And again, it doesn't matter what laws you have in your country. If Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube is saying things like polygamy are bad, doesn't matter if you're a cultural Zulu man, that is going to be the flavor and the culture of where you live, and you'll be looked at as wrong, even though you're like, but who taught you that? Who owns your mind? I want to add two other concepts here under Techno-feudalism. Number one, paywall capitalism, or just paywall for those who may not know, is a method of restricting access to content with a purchase or a paid subscription, especially the news. We see this all the time today. Beginning in the mid-2010s, newspapers started implementing paywalls on their websites as a way to increase revenue after years of decline in paid print readership and advertising revenue, partly due to the use of ad blockers. The second one, and mind you, this paywall capitalism filters into so many other aspects of society. I'd like to add my own term, being tollgate capitalism, because a paywall says, if you don't pay money here, you can't access the article. If you don't pay money here, you cannot watch this program. If you don't pay money here, you can't access this information. That is similar to a tollgate. If you can't pay this fee at this tollgate, you can't pass through and get to the other side. And it seems online, especially, but even in real life, there are more and more toll gates. In a country like South Africa, where we have freedom of movement, power constitution, I would love to go and look at wild animals at the Kruger National Park, but there is a paywall, there's a toll gate to get in to see nature. If you want to go to a zoo, there's a paywall, there's a gate to get in there. If I want to travel from Johannesburg to Durban, I have to pass a lot of paywalls with my car, being toll gates, to be able to get to Durban. And this now is happening more and more frequently online. SaaS, software as a service. Software as a service is a cloud-based model where software is licensed on a subscription basis and is centrally hosted by a provider. Users access the applications over the internet, typically through a web browser, without needing to install or manage the software or the underlying infrastructure themselves. Examples include platforms like Google Workspace and Salesforce, where a monthly or annual fee grants access to the application and automatic updates. How SaaS works: remote hosting. The software and its data are hosted on the provider's servers in the cloud. Internet access. Users connect to the service from any device with an internet connection. Subscription model. Access is provided through a recurring fee, such as a monthly or annual subscription. Provider management. The SaaS provider is responsible for all maintenance, updates, and security of the application and its infrastructure. Benefits of SaaS: accessibility. Access applications from any location and device. It's cost-effective, avoids large upfront costs associated with buying software licenses and hardware. Automatic updates. The provider handles all software updates and patches, ensuring users are always on the latest version. Scalability. Businesses can easily scale the usage up or down based on their needs. Reduced IT burden. Companies don't need to manage software installations or hardware maintenance. And I've got examples written here. This is software as a service. YouTube Premium, something you pay for every month. It allows you to access YouTube comfortably without ads. There's something called freemium, by the way, where you can access the same thing I'm accessing, but you didn't have to, wade through all the adverts, all the pop-ups, and just to get the same thing I'm getting. So you either pay it in money to access, or you pay it in terms of your attention capital and being sold a product or a service in the form of ads. And that's normally very, very annoying. The DSTV decoder, I'll add cars as well. We are getting more and more smart cars. When you read up on some of these concepts that I'm speaking about today, you realize that many more companies today are selling you products or giving you products where once you've gotten the product and you're like, this is mine, it is not actually yours. You still need to pay to access usage of that product. I buy a DSTV decoder, I install a satellite dish. That's mine. I want to now enjoy content. I cannot enjoy the content until I pay a monthly subscription. Today, companies maybe even give you the cell phone for free or for a very cheap amount. Once you have the cell phone, I want to use it. Oh, it's mine, I bought it. You need to pay for airtime regularly. You need to pay for data regularly. And even after I've gotten that airtime and that data, there's still limited usage on my phone. Because if I want to access certain applications on my phone, I may have to pay to download, or it may be free to download. But to use some of these applications, I then have to pay on the spot, monthly, annually, etc. And this becomes software as a service. Many smart cars today, you buy the car, you can drive it. Yes, you maybe charge it with electricity or you pour fuel. But the reality is for some of them to access maybe their navigation systems and you pay. For security, your tracker, for example, you also pay for that every month to ensure that your car is being tracked. Something that should be just you buying a GPS device, putting it in your car, and saying, if anyone steals my car, I'll just activate my GPS device. I'll find out where my car is. They're like, no. We'll put it in for you. You pay for the product or we give it to you for free. You'll pay every month for us to check where your car is at any given time. Cloud storage, of course. And as it's said here, you can choose your scale. You can choose how much space you want on cloud. More, less. We're uploading all the time now our photos, our videos, and other things. People may not know this, and this might be just a little silly thing to tell you. Did you know? There is no such thing as a cloud. There is no such thing as like our information is sitting on a cloud somewhere. A cloud is just another computer or another server somewhere else. And Amazon Web Services, I think, has got the biggest, if not them, then it's Oracle, through Larry Ellison, who was the richest man for a short period just recently, and then Elon Musk overtook him at $500 billion US. You put your information on the internet, well, let's say it's on your phone, on your laptop. You save it to a cloud. You go and save it on a website somewhere. That website takes you to a server, mostly run by Amazon or Oracle, sitting in America somewhere. Same thing happens with Facebook and Meta. Same thing happens with Google and YouTube and other platforms. Your information is just going on the internet to a server somewhere where you can then retrieve it. Almost like a savings account. Or if you watch these thriller movies, espionage, where someone walks into like a bank vault and they get given like a safe deposit box. You're Tom Cruise, you're Jason Bourne, and then they open it and there's money there and passports and the like. It's something like that, but it's an online service. And because they play with our imagination, it's like it's in the cloud. So I just need to access my cloud and download it like it's in the air. It's not. It's actually sitting on a server somewhere else. It's literally almost like a flash drive, a hard drive that is just huge and scaled and sits somewhere else. But instead of you just moving your stuff there and accessing it, they make you pay rent every month just to keep your stuff there. And if you're not paying the rent, they cut access to pictures and videos of your children, of your parents, of important information, etc. Platforms like Twitter X and Premium, also you pay every month to access certain benefits. I made examples of your Netflix, DSTV, Showmax, Amazon as well. And then Microsoft and other usage software, your Adobe and the like, where you pay every month just to be able to use your Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. You have to pay for that every single month. And then there's phone apps and in-app purchases. So you download the app, but to access certain features on the app, you pay for that. There are parents now that go and buy their kids video games. And in the video game, you can play it at a basic level, but once you want to have more lives, once you want to get cool weapons, once you want to access certain portals in the game, you then pay in real money to access those things. That is software as a service. I just want to check some of my other notes because there's something I wanted to raise and I just want to see where it is. Okay. A term called the rent economy. Most things that can be made in capitalism have already been made. A lot of the markets are saturated and there aren't many new markets to exploit. So the next best move for capitalists was to take away ownership of what you have and make you rent. So again, you own a house, you buy a house, even if you buy it cash. But every single month you have to pay rates and taxes. You have to pay for garden maintenance. You have to pay your house insurance, etc., etc. You buy a car. Once you have the car, you have to pour in fuel, petrol, diesel. You have to pay car insurance every month. You have to renew your license disc every year. You have to renew your driving license card every 5 years. And then if you've got a smart car, there are other subscriptions that you can add to that. Never mind the service for your car or your car warranty, whatever the case may be. You own the product, but it's limited in terms of its usage. And there are terms now called late-stage capitalism, which speaks about the concept that even certain parts of your products you cannot access or fix anymore. In the past, you buy a car, your car breaks down, you need to service, you can do it yourself. Go to a spares shop, you buy parts, you fix it. A lot of the products being created today, the parts that are made are unique to that product. So Apple, for example, has got its own charging cables. They don't use generic. So you need to buy specific Apple charging cables. The parts as well. You have to buy specific parts. And where you could buy generic parts, you now specifically have to get the parts from the person that sent you that or sold you that product. And sometimes they are the only people that can fix those products as well. You have to send them away. Kind of like our driving license card machine in South Africa, of which apparently we only have one, and apparently it can only be serviced in Germany. It's ridiculous. This is how you create some type of paywall toll gate, and you monopolize not just the product, but the services, the parts, etc., and it becomes a problem. The other thing that they've done is obviously we can't take out our batteries anymore. Battery could fade, throw away the battery. This is now part of obsolescence. Battery would be dying, you throw it away, you get another battery. Today the battery is built in, so when your battery starts dying out, you need to get a new phone completely. These are some of the things that we're dealing with in society today. So I covered techno-feudalism. Then last but not least, neoliberalism. So there's a generic term, but I specifically want to cover Wendy Brown's neoliberalism. But let me start with the generic. Neoliberalism, ideology and policy, is an ideology and a policy model that emphasizes the value of free market competition. Although there's considerable debate as to the defining features of neoliberal thought and practice, it is most commonly associated with laissez-faire economics. In particular, neoliberalism is often characterized in terms of its belief in sustained economic growth, something that we hear from politicians now and they have funders all the time, economic growth, as the means to achieve human progress. We can't create jobs, we can't ensure social welfare unless we have economic growth. It's confidence in free markets as the most efficient allocation of resources. So they don't want socialism or communism. They're like, we need the free market system because this is the best way to make sure that hardworking people get benefits. Its emphasis on minimal state intervention, so less government, more private companies, in economic and social affairs, and its commitment to the freedom of trade and capital. That's neoliberalism as a generic. Then there's Wendy Brown. Wendy Brown is an American political theorist who defines neoliberalism as a governing rationality that transforms human beings into market actors, governed by market norms and values. This concept is central to her work, particularly in her books, Undoing the Demos, Neoliberalism's Stealth Revolution, and another book, In the Ruins of Neoliberalism, The Rise of Anti-Democratic Politics in the West. The key aspects of neoliberalism, according to Wendy Brown: the economization of life. Liberalism reduces human existence to economic terms, where every aspect of life is evaluated through market metrics. The marketization of politics. Politics becomes a market-driven endeavor where decisions are made based on economic efficiency and profit, not even necessarily the well-being of the people. How does it affect the economy? Politicians must be funded, there must be funding, it must somehow have some type of economic impact. The erosion of democracy. Neoliberalism undermines democratic values and institutions, replacing them with technocratic and market-driven solutions. We spoke about the erosion of democracy with techno-feudalism and how these online giants are now having a direct impact on democracy and people's rights to govern themselves or in a way that they want to be organized. An attack on social justice. Neoliberalism promotes individual freedom while rejecting social justice and equality, often using moral and traditional values to justify inequality. Neoliberal rationality, a governing rationality that constructs new subjects, subjectivities, and social relations, shaping how we think, act, and understand ourselves and our world. Brown's work critiques neoliberalism for its devastating effects on democracy, social justice, and human well-being. She argues that neoliberalism's emphasis on market values and efficiency has led to the erosion of democratic institutions and the rise of anti-democratic politics. Her analysis draws on the works of Michel Foucault, Friedrich Hayek, and other key thinkers to understand the complex and multifaceted nature of neoliberalism. In my own notes, the commodification of nature and the economization of everything. Everything must be bought and sold. Everything, even water today. And I'm sure the next step will probably be clean air. Neoliberalism construes even non-wealth generating spheres, such as learning, dating, or exercising in market terms. It submits them to market metrics and governs them with market techniques and practices. Above all, it casts people as human capital who must constantly tend to their own present and future value. So you can't just exist like an animal out there and be beautiful in nature like a peacock. You are a product yourself. You are like a robot. What is your net worth? What is your value? What is your qualification? What money can be drawn from you? What skills can you impart that have a financial aspect to them? Moreover, because neoliberalism came of age with and abetted by financialization, the form of marketization at stake does not always concern products or commodities, let alone their exchange. Today, market actors, from individuals to firms, universities to states, restaurants to magazines, are more often concerned with their speculatively determined value, their ratings and rankings that shape future value, than with immediate profit. All are tasked with enhancing present and future value through self-investments that in turn attract investors. You become a business, as I said. Like, you are qualified as a lawyer because you spent however many years investing in yourself financially and your education. And every year you have to pay an annual subscription in the product that is you and the skill set that is you. Then you have to go out and work. And then you have to be part of a body as well. And you must constantly be upgrading yourself like a cell phone in that CPD that I spoke about earlier. And then you have a net worth, of course. Financialized market conduct entails increasing or maintaining one's ratings, whether through blog hits, retweets, Yelp stars, college rankings, or Moody's bond ratings. Moving forward will probably be measured by how many followers you have online, how many likes you've accumulated. There's an episode on Black Mirror on Netflix called Nosedive, where we speak about social capital. They have a form of that in China, and I'm sure with the digital ID that's coming, it's going to become more prevalent, where you cannot move into a certain neighborhood if you don't have a certain number of stars or rankings or ratings online. So that is essentially like your employer, the real estate agent, the school that wants to take your kids. They want to know, what is your qualification? Which university did you go to? Which school did you matriculate from? How many followers do you have online? How many likes do you have on TikTok? How many posts have you posted on LinkedIn? How many views do your videos get on YouTube, as an example? And they're going to create some type of social value for you as an individual to say, you now qualify to enter this neighborhood. If you want to get into this neighborhood, you must go to this school. Your children must create a YouTube channel and have at least this many followers. You must go on TikTok and at least have this many likes before we can even consider you to be worthy of being within our space. A Nosedive, Black Mirror on Netflix. I don't want to read some of these other things. I want to read some of my other notes. Having a baby. This is now the economization of everything and the commodification of natural things. Having a baby has become a business. People use terms like, I can't afford to have a baby. Imagine birds, chimpanzees, elephants, lions saying things like, we cannot afford to have children. Children were never meant to be commodities. They were meant to be a part of nature. But to have a child, people have to pay for a house. They have to buy a car. They need to have a job that pays them a monthly income. They need to be on medical aid. They need to be able to pay for pregnancy supplements. They must be able to deliver in a hospital. After that, the child must be in a cot, have a pram, have a nanny, have clothes from a shop, and then go to school, which costs money as well. So you cannot afford to have a child because the concept of having a baby has become commodified. You have to afford to get into a life union. Imagine if, again, lions, chimpanzees, owls, tigers, the male has to go and pay lobolo to the woman's family in money. They have to go in and pay for a white wedding. They have to go and have a cultural wedding and put up a tent and slaughter animals. Then they have to go into a paid honeymoon. They have to buy an expensive ring. Then they have to buy a house. Animals would not be able to get into life partnerships. And we have commodified the union of people in the form of marriage. I cannot afford to get married because it has become so expensive. Things that are meant to be nature are commodities with an industry that makes money for them. People today pay for sex, whether directly or indirectly. You can pay for a prostitute, or you can take a girl out. You Uber her to wherever you're staying. You pay for her meal. You pay for her to do her hair and her nails. You're paying indirectly for sex. We pay to walk or hike in nature or see wildlife. I made the example of the Kruger National Park. I want to go and hike in my land. Yes, but to hike here, you need to pay 50 Rand entry. To walk in nature, I must pay. Spending time with family is now costing money. There are people, especially end of the year, that don't go home anymore from the big cities to the townships or the villages because the concept of black tax, the concept of when I get home, everyone is going to be expecting me to pay for a cow, a sheep, a goat. My mom wants me to buy her appliances. My father wants me to maybe help him fix his car. My aunt is hoping I can renovate her kitchen. My friends back there or my uncles and my cousins want me to buy them alcohol. And because I'm in so much debt, because I don't have money, I end up not going to spend time with my family that I love. Because we've commodified what it means to go and travel home. Sometimes you can't even afford the bus ticket, the airplane ticket. You can't afford fuel and toll gates to travel. Your car hasn't been serviced. We've commodified visiting family. Concept of commodification is the process of transforming inalienable, free, or gifted things, objects, services, ideas, nature, personal information, people or animals into commodities or objects for sale. It has a connotation of losing an inherent quality or social relationship when something is integrated by a capitalist marketplace. Concepts that have been argued as being commodified include broad items such as the body. Body is a commodity. People pay. People can insure. I think J-Lo used to insure her butt. Athletes insure their legs. Other people insure their voices if they maybe sing or speak for a living. Intimacy, as I mentioned. Public goods, like walking in nature. Animals have been commodified where you now pay to see animals. When we domesticated animals, all of a sudden you needed to pay money, work hard and pay money to access a certain animal. And even holidays. What used to be great notions, Mother's Day, your mom, Father's Day, Valentine's Day with your lover, Christmas, the birth of baby Jesus, Halloween, Easter. These are now commercial money spinners that have been commodified. You need to save money and budget for Valentine's Day, for Mother's Day, for Father's Day, for Christmas. Things that were just meant to be about people, family coming together and just celebrating together are now business enterprises that put you under a lot of pressure. Birthdays, anniversaries, etc. I think I've covered most of my notes for today. I want to see what I'm missing. Okay. I think I've covered mostly everything. how modern capitalism has made us poorer than our parents. We work 3 times more than our parents. We even have side hustles. And on paper, we are earning more than 6 times what they did. If your mom was earning 5,000 Rand, you're earning 30,000 Rand a month. But we can't afford half of what they could. We can't afford to buy the houses that we were raised in. We can't afford to pay school fees where we went to school. And the question was why? I referenced the Buy Now documentary on Netflix. Please go check it out. I also referenced an episode of Black Mirror, Nosedive, on Netflix as well. There's a tweet by Sizwe, sikaMusi, of which I'm going to post the link in the comments and the description. And I raised these 4 concepts for you guys to go and research, dig deeper. Obsolescence. The idea that companies create products that they know are going to expire, wither away, break. The battery is going to fade at some point so that you can keep replacing. And we don't have quality items anymore. That's obsolescence. I spoke about shrinkflation. The idea that certain products still cost the same, if not more, but we are getting less quantity of that. And in shrinkflation, I also added the degree inflation or credentialism, where a job that needed you to just have some type of work experience, an apprentice for 6 months, at some point needed just a grade 9. At some point just needed a grade 12, just a junior degree, a diploma. Now need a postgraduate qualification and work experience. And then after that, you still have to pay to be part of that organization or that body. And then you have to pay for continuing professional development, exams, tests, etc. Shrinkflation. I spoke about techno-feudalism or digital feudalism, especially made popular by Yanis Varoufakis, where now instead of just land that is owned by the kings and where there are lords and nobles who have vassals who then allow peasants to come and stay on land as long as they are paying taxes and they are offering their produce, etc. We've got that online today, where the major tech companies, these tech giants that rule the world, are now owning online platforms. And we now need to pay to access these spaces. We have to go and work hard to subscribe, to pay a bit of money all the time. And not only that, with techno-feudalism, this king, this lord, in the form of your Mark Zuckerberg, your Elon Musk, your Jeff Bezos, your Bill Gates, all of these guys today, they control how we think. The guys that run your DSTV, Netflix, Amazon Prime, etc., YouTube, they influence how we think, how we live. We fight with our own governments. We fight with our cultural leaders, with our religious leaders, based on how they are controlling our minds on the online space. We spoke about a renter economy where you buy something, but it's no longer yours because you have to pay rent just to access the features. I spoke about paywall capitalism. I spoke about SaaS, software as a service. Then I covered Wendy Brown's neoliberalism, which by and large speaks about the commodification of natural things and the economization of everything, and how we as human beings are no longer just human beings and animals in the animal kingdom. We are now market actors. We now have a net worth. We now have a value assigned to us. And once we have digital IDs, everyone will be able to then block you and say, you can't get into this space. We've done facial recognition. We've done your fingerprints. You don't meet the score. You don't earn enough. You don't have the right qualification. You don't have the right number of likes or followers or subscribers online. So you must go and work hard like a slave, like a serf. Go and dance on TikTok and get your likes up so you can get in. Go and maybe pay a certain amount so that you can be allowed in through this paywall platform. You can't access this information, which should be available freely until you pay 20 Rand onto this website. And we are controlled in such a way. And many of us speak about inflation as a concept and how it's destroyed money and poisoned money and how things are so much more expensive. But we don't speak much about these other concepts that are ensuring that no matter how hard we work, no matter how educated we become, we are worth way less than our parents were in a more natural world, where there were such things as bartering, where you could just visit your family and you guys just hug and you all cook a meal together, picking your mom's spinach and cabbage, going to fetch a chicken that you guys were raising and eggs to make a meal and be happy. Today you have to go to a store and sign up and get a gift card, and you have to celebrate Mother's Day by subscribing to this and paying for that. Just to have children costs money. Just to have a relationship, a companion, costs money. To get married costs money. Our whole existence, unlike a chimpanzee, my favorite animal, is no longer based on natural principles, but based on these financial concepts that are corrupting us, corrupting the world that we live in, and making us more and more slaves to a system of capitalism that is not helping us. And although I'm not really offering solutions and I'm just planting a seed, the question I want to ask you with, how do we build parallel worlds that are not controlled only by the money system, which is controlled by the central banks, bought on by the Rothschilds as a banking dynasty, controlled by the Federal Reserve and the dollarization of the world? How do we create a parallel universe where money is not the only measure and the only way to access certain things? It's not the only medium of exchange. It's not the only store of value. Do we look into crypto, blockchain, your Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, others? Are they a real alternative? But they still somehow are linked to the dollar and the like. Store of value. How do we find units of account? How do we create some type of bartering system where we create IOUs, maybe using the internet and blockchain to say, you've offered a service or a product, I owe you, but I'm not going to pay you in the rand, which has inflation. I'm not going to pay you in the dollar, which is manipulated. I'm not going to pay you in the yen or the pound or the euro. Do I pay you in time? Do I pay you in skill? And how do we quantify it? How do we study nature, real animals, so that we do not become slaves of, before it was the feudal lords, today it's the tech giants. At some point it was the colonizers with the weapons who would come and take over lands and set these laws. Today we've got tech billionaires who are dictating how society works, who are infiltrating governments. Just recently, Donald Trump was sitting with some of the biggest bosses of tech, including the CEOs of Google, Nvidia, etc. And how do we fight back? Because what this is doing is it's taking away from nature. Live the financial life. Live according to these things that I've told you. But we need to have alternatives for people that don't do well in school, can't afford to pay for a good school, can't afford to pay annual membership fees to practice uba udokotela or inyanga, can't afford these subscriptions online to access information that we should have freely, don't have money to pay ilobolo to be in a union, don't have money to deliver their child in a private hospital, don't have money to send their kids to these expensive schools, don't have money to date, but they are animals that are able to add some type of real value that can be quantified. How do we quantify it alternatively so that we can exchange it and we can live in a better world? Looking forward to reading your comments below. Pen you all the black pen. Cheers.